Welcome, Facebook friends. This is a really special day. It's a big day of transition. It is January 20th, 2021. I'm Love Coach Scott Catamas, and I'm really honored to be hosting a special edition of Across the Aisle. This is a show that's been taking place for several months. And in a minute, I'm going to introduce you to the creators, the people who are going to be running Across the Aisle. And I want to welcome everybody on Facebook who's watching. If you want to come into our Zoom room, we will give you the Zoom room ID, or you can just go to my profile page. I'm the only Scott Catamas on the planet, Catamas, and you'll see the Zoom room link right there, and you can just click it and come into our Zoom room. And the advantage to come into the Zoom room is that it's easier for us to see your comments and your questions. And speaking of the Zoom room, I see that we've got about 45 people with us right now, 12 panelists and about 32 people that are attendees. And again, we would love to see your comments, your questions. We'll do our very best to get to those. So it's my honor now to introduce the people that have been doing this show and who are going to be running it. And I'm going to start by actually introducing a very good friend of mine who is also living in my home. He's a master communicator, a brilliant coach and teacher, and he is who originated the idea for this show. I'd like you to meet Paul Sterling.
Hey, Scott, thanks a lot. Are we doing the introduction, or am I going to talk now about how this all came about?
We're doing introductions, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Yeah. So also want to introduce one of my oldest and dearest friends. This is Katrina Valancourt, and she's been doing Across the Aisle with her partner, John Kenyon, who she's going to introduce.
Actually, we're going to have Paul introduce John. So why don't you go ahead with that, Paul?
All right. Well, John and I met years ago studying with a guy named Marshall Rosenberg. And Marshall, I can think of my life before Marshall and after Marshall, and he was the creator of something called nonviolent communication, which really transformed my world. And when I thought of this whole project, John was the first person that came to mind, because John is a mediator and a teacher of nonviolent communication. And even more important than that, he's somebody who lives it, and it just oozes. Nonviolent communication oozes out of him. He's a gentle soul. So that's John Kenyon.
Well, since you did a fair amount about John, I'm going to go just give a little more about Katrina. Katrina is also a wonderful coach. She's the creator of the Love Smart cards. She's the co-founder of Love Coach Academy. And really, especially amazing at working with families and helping mothers and children understand each other. So it's great to have Katrina here. And I think, Katrina, you're going to introduce Corey.
Yes, it is definitely my pleasure to introduce Corey. I've been just blessed to get to know this man over the last year as we've been working in a group together. Corey is an Agape licensed spiritual practitioner from the Agape International Center, which is in Los Angeles, California. He is also it's founded by Michael Beckwith. If anybody hasn't seen Michael, you got to check out Michael. He is amazing. So Corey brings that agape spirit to his work. He's also a communication coach in nonviolent communication. Just amazing at empathy. I am so grateful for you, Corey. It's been wonderful to share Across the Aisle with you, and so good to have you here.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here.
And we also are going to have some music. And so I'm really delighted that joining us is one of my favorite musicians. She's an amazing musical artist. This is Sister Stone, coming all the way to us from Mexico. And she's going to bless us with some musical offerings just to keep everything moving and flowing like water. So welcome, Sister Stone. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And I think this is now when the four of you, are going to share a little bit about the history of Across the Aisle.
All right, so I'll start with that. I wrote this book, Argue Less, Love More. And I teach nonviolent communication. I work with couples, and I noticed that on Facebook, my behavior was totally different than my behavior in the real world. And I was doing one-line comments, and they were mean and snarky, basically saying, "How stupid can you be?" Now, that's not the exact words, but that was the implication. And I realized that this is not who I want to be. And this is not reaching across the aisle, and it's creating more separation. And so what I wanted to do is create a format that reached across the aisle so Republicans and Democrats could work together. So Black Lives Matter and the police department, so that we could actually start reaching across and resolving issues rather than amplifying them and making them worse. And so that's when I got the idea, and I reached out to John and said, let's do something, and and luckily John took on the logistical part. He gave me the foundation. I was the idea, he was the foundation. And so and then it expanded from there. And it's really, we've watched so many amazing things happen with people who've been kind of separated from their families and couldn't talk, to people they loved and cared about. And this is that gentle space. So John, that's how it got started. What do you want to say about it?
Yeah. So when Paul asked me, I just jumped at the idea because this was back in the early fall. So it was the really ramping up of the election time, and things were really intensifying with the polarization and I just thought, wow, what a great way to try to contribute to so much animosity across the political spectrum. And I just, in my own life and in the work I do mediating between people in conflict, I find over and over and over again that people don't have to agree on the facts or interpretations of the facts, but even on the facts themselves, that people, if they can just hear each other and really kind of stay connected to their own truth. So it's not about giving that up, but then doing that and then say, okay, is this what you're saying? Let me try to understand you. It's really possible to do both, to stay connected to your own truth and really try to hear somebody else without trying to talk them out of it or disagree. You can just hear and understand without agreeing. You can totally disagree. And then I found whenever I do that, like my wife and I have some pretty big disagreements about a lot of things, but whenever we go into that mode, it's like we end up getting connected and we find a way to do something in partnership together. So I've seen that so many times that once people start listening that way, they stop trying to convince each other of things and hear each other's experience and perspective. Then they just kind of naturally start to feel more connected. And then we can find underneath that these common desires, these universal things we want and need, and able to kind of work together, even though maybe the disagreement never changes. We keep disagreeing, but there's a way to work together and feel connected. And I just wanted to share that with the world. And Paul had this great idea that we could start offering this for the political conversation. And then we wanted to expand it to white guys. And Paul, you were the first to kind of realize, where it's just these two white guys doing this. Why don't we try to expand things, for the sake of, just being more representative of the world and getting more help to do it. So we asked Katrina, and I'll pass it to you, Katrina, and then you can tell how we also brought Corey on, and the four of us has been a really wonderful team. So Katrina.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I noticed, like Paul, I was on social media and I was pretty good about not going into the bad, stupid, wrong, but it was still there. And I was doing the best I could to be compassionate and have intelligent debate. But I have to say, doing that via comments generally is not actually building a sense of connection. So I was really looking for a place of where can I actually have these conversations and build a sense of connection. And I was just delighted when I found out that Paul and John were offering this together. The first session I came into was so beautiful. It was just such a change from what I was seeing on social media threads. And Corey was in that group as well. Again, I've been working with Corey for over a year now. And the way he showed up, I was like, yes, this is what we need in the world. And so I had connected with John because I also run a show called Igniting Compassion, where I interview people who are trainers of nonviolent communication. And I told him I'd love to join you and bring Corey on because he's got some real gifts to share. So I'm just really delighted that Corey said yes. Corey, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah. I'm really enjoying the dynamic with these three and connecting with people from all different political preferences, viewpoints. And it's been a really yummy experience for me. And Paul has articulated this, but it's this idea of, I realize there's a part of me that sometimes I just want to be right. I just want to be right and correct. And there's something beautiful when I dig up underneath that to see that what I really want to do is to be heard, to be understood, to be valued. And that's what we've been doing with Across the Aisle, is creating a space where people can offload the contextual stuff that's in their minds about maybe how they haven't been heard, to be in a space where they are heard. And that's what's beautiful about Across the Aisle and what we have going here. So I'll pass it back to whoever wants to speak next.
Actually, I think we're going to stay on you to lead us in an opening prayer and meditation.
Ah, beautiful. So I get to wear a few hats here. One is as a practitioner in nonviolent communication, but the reason I even know about this process is I had the pleasure of working at the Agape International Spiritual Center. So I'm also a practitioner there, 20 years. And what I'm going to lead us into now is about 2 minutes, somewhat in the silence, but I'm also going to be saying some things. So whatever your particular spiritual or religious background may be, or preference, or maybe if you don't have one, that's absolutely fine. This is more of a grounding exercise. So I'd like you to be mindful of your posture and where you may be sitting, and that my request is that you're as comfortable as possible. And if you choose to, you can close your eyes or you can keep them open. And what I'd like you to do with me right now is just to take in a deep breath. And exhale. One more time, inhale. And exhale. So what we're doing now is just taking the next minute or so to ground ourselves in the silence. And at this moment, you may notice your heartbeat, your breath, the way you're sitting in your chair if you're sitting. And so this is a grounding awareness exercise. Just simply being aware that you're aware in this moment. And that in this moment, there are multiple needs that are being met. There is oxygen that we are collectively inhaling and exhaling. The heart is beating, pumping blood throughout the body. And a whole host of different functions within the body temple itself. And so I invite you just to be aware of being aware in this moment. And that there are some 7 or 8 billion of us on this planet right here and now, in what I call spaceship planet Earth, in which there is more than enough to go around. So many resources. And to recognize right here and now that we are all, to some extent, or another resourced, that we've eaten a meal within the last few hours, that we've drank some water within the last few hours. And just to be mindful of the ways in which you've been provided for within the last 24 hours. And how does it feel to have your needs met? And perhaps there are some other needs that are not being met right now, and to acknowledge that. And to acknowledge this very single moment that we are all here on this call, because there's something to be gained, to be shared, to be experienced. And so in this last moment, as we take a few moments in the silence, I'd like you to ponder one thing that you're grateful for, one thing that's going really, really well. And with that being said, thank you for joining me in this exercise. If you'd like to open your eyes now, feel free to. Coming back to the circle. Peace and blessings.
Thank you so much, Corey. That was beautiful. And I want to invite, we have over 60 people in our Zoom room. And I want to invite you, those of you in our Zoom room, and those of you watching on Facebook. Let's see, we've got about 30 or 40 people watching on Facebook. Put into the chat box here in Zoom or into the comments on Facebook what came up for you. Would love to see your name, where you're from geographically, and what came up for you just now when Corey asked what you're grateful for. And I want to start by just saying I'm grateful that so far we've had today a very smooth transition from one presidential administration to another presidential administration, that there hasn't been significant violence, and I'm grateful for that. And this is a nonpartisan event, and so I think we all ideally want to pray for and wish the best and appreciation for the outgoing administration and blessings to all members of the outgoing administration. Maximum grace for Donald Trump, his family, his administration, and likewise prayers and maximum grace for the incoming administration, and blessings for our country. Absolutely just asking for maximum grace for our country. I'm really grateful also that we've got Sister Stone with us to lead us in a musical blessing. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for all of your love and wisdom. It's an honor to be here. So before I share my song, I wanted to just offer just a couple words about this music, because I've spent the past 10 years holding counsel, living in community, and learning different ways of like the art of hosting and really understanding how everything is a relationship and how we need to tend to the relationships that we have with our bodies, with other humans, with the earth, with water, with all the elements. And that, so I decided to create a musical project called Reciprocal Relations. And it's all about being in reciprocal relationship with all of life and living our life as an offering, and learning how we can continue to open up the feedback channel that is communication with everything. And so this EP that I released in May 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, my first ever music project, is all about that, you know. And so this first song is about water, and it's actually less about water, but it's more communicating to water. And it's a way that I've learned to connect with water, with other elements, is to talk to it as it's alive. So you'll hear in the words that prayer, the way that I pray to water. So it's also pretty funky, so feel free to dance. I won't be mad. Hey, hey, huh, hey, you that grows, you that flows, how you are in me, how you are in all living things. Teach me how to nourish, how you let life flourish, how you're deep and how you're vast, how you move so slow and fast, how you find your way into the smallest, darkest place. Teach me how to pray, how to move like you with grace. Water is life. Whoa, water is life. Water is life. Whoa, water is life. Yo, I watch you water in the way that you move. So pure, so clean. It's you, it's so true. Ooh, I come to you every day on my knees, praying to you, asking you to show me how to be a life giver, flow like your river. It's you who I owe my life to. Nothing in this world compares to your divinity, highest order of love, holy source of everything. I pray about the people who are thirsty and rage about the people who are greedy. I pray about the people who are thirsty and rage about the people who are greedy. Water is life. Whoa. Water is life. Water is life. Whoa. Water is life. You who is me, have mercy, mercy. For the ways I've mistreated you, for the ways I have depleted you, for forgetting you're holy, you bring me to be lowly. Teach me how to wait till the tide follows its way, how you never leave, only change or stay, holding you the memory of all the energy that came before and still be pure, to wash away or does not remain. Water is life. Whoa, water is life. Water is life. Whoa, water is life.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sister Stone. I love that song. And let's all remember that as we drink our water, yeah? Sister Stone's going to bless us with two more songs throughout the show tonight. And I just want to acknowledge your wisdom. You may be younger than many of us, but you have spent many, many years living with different indigenous peoples. And so you have an understanding of such a vast array of cultures, and that you bring that in so much of your music and so much just of your being. So I so respect you.
Thank you so much.
So actually, in looking at our agenda that we created, I think since we've already done the introduction to the story of Across the Aisle, we're going to go into a short video right now. So here we go.
This video is from Dara Barlin, who's doing some very important work, and it kind of gives us a sense of the crux of the challenge that we're dealing with. So thank you.
Our country is becoming more and more polarized, and it's costing us a lot. Hate crimes are up, mass shootings are up. The internet has become a place where we bash each other online or delete people who don't think like us. Many people suggest that we're not listening to each other. The right only listens to the right, the left only listens to the left. But brain science is showing there's a lot more to it. When people get presented with ideas that don't conform to their own, it can unknowingly make them feel unsafe and activate the amygdala. The amygdala is the part of our brains that control the fight or flight mode. When it gets triggered, it hijacks the rest of the brain, which means we no longer have access to our logic or empathy. This part of our brain worked really well back in cave people days, when we were being chased by hyenas and bears and the woolly mammoth. The world has since evolved, and we don't have as many dangers as those faced by our prehistoric ancestors. Unfortunately, our amygdalas have remained pretty much intact, which means our brains are constantly looking for danger, even when there is no threat. And when there is potential danger, it feels a lot bigger than the actual threat that exists. This makes it much more likely for people to call the cops on people outside of their own community, for people to feel righteous indignation against people with different values, and creates all the conditions needed for violence to spring up. But there's good news. Psychologists and people in the world of social work have figured out some tricks to help people override the amygdala, so they can get past that fear part of their brain and really be open to different ways of being. Today we're going to apply the same concepts, but we're going to do it in a political setting.
And there we go. Katrina, I'm going to put the spotlight on you, and then you can introduce the other members of your panel to talk about this.
Sure. So again, that was from Dara Barlin, and she's doing some very important work. You can find her at dareconsulting.org. And what I really love about this video is she just powerfully shows this challenge that we're in different news funnels. If anybody has not yet seen Social Dilemma, it really highlights how much our funnels can have us really perceive reality in totally different ways. And then there's a dilemma of if we get into a debate about reality and what's true, and we hear something that goes contrary to what we believe is true, it can actually, again, stimulate the amygdala, that part of our brain that goes into some level of panic and sees danger like it's a big grizzly bear, right? The threat seems larger than it actually is. And so there are techniques to calm that down. One is the across the aisle work we do, the music too, Sister Stone, like just singing and dancing helps to calm it down. And there are other people also doing some work to talk about how we can calm that down so that we're able to come into empathy and to be able to understand the other person as opposed to having a fear reaction that's based in that limited part of our brain that only knows fight, flight, and freeze. So I just wanted to really acknowledge her work as well. So do we want to, we'll bring in our across the aisle panelists again. And there's some topics that come up. One is the problem of dehumanization. Again, when we're in that amygdala response, there's a tendency to see the other person as a threat rather than somebody who's just giving their opinion, their view of the world. We might actually see them as a threat. And John, I'm wondering if you might speak to dehumanization as it relates to this work of Across the Aisle.
Yeah, just how easy it is to get kind of lost inside our thinking. We sometimes call that sort of enemy images. And that with practice, though, we can be aware of our thinking instead of lost kind of unconsciously inside of it. And there's different practices of mindfulness and focusing attention in our body and things like that. But then there's also ways of using language to shift away from that thoughts and images and see what's behind it, what we feel and what we want and need that's kind of underneath those judgments and enemy images. And that's really what the process we've come up with here for Across the Aisle is a way of creating structure that just supports being kind of aware of what our beliefs are and then shifting to what we feel, what we want, and being able to try and focusing on trying to hear each other. I think that just that intention really soothes and calms these different things. So how we use language, how we communicate, the intention we bring, and all that's kind of built into what we've come up with in a kind of simple way that anybody can do really once you get the hang of it, to kind of shift out of that polarizing, dehumanizing mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was reflecting on this a little bit earlier today, because what we're seeing in terms of kind of the right and left arguments, or any form of polarization, we can compare it to any kind of relationship dynamics where we get into conflict. I'm sure everybody out here has at some point known a couple who has separated. And there could have been a lot of argument in the separation. And if you talk to one party, you get one story of what happened. And if they're upset, it's likely that they make the other person really look bad, like they were the victim and the other person's bad, right? If you talk to the other person, you're going to get a very different story, right? I'm the victim here. That one was bad. And so one of the roles of a mediator, or if you're somebody who has been able to talk to both sides, you start to get a bigger picture of the dynamics that are happening. And you start to get a sense of, well, you know, what was the dynamic that actually played out with these people where they're both feeling so hurt. So you're able to hold a bigger picture that brings it back to human connection. It brings it back to the emotions that are arising and the needs that both parties have. And that's really the essential ingredient in any mediation, is to be able to see both sides of any experience through this place of I care about you, and I care about your feelings, I care about your needs. It's helpful to understand perspectives. So that's a lot of what we're doing in this across the aisle dialogue. We're going from me versus you, right, to us, being able to understand us versus the problem. The problem is that there's a conflict. The problem, you know, can be defined when we really listen to both parties. Yeah, I'm wondering if you have anything else to add, John. And I also know that sometimes Scott has these just beautiful pieces of wisdom that arise.
Good stories, yeah. Maybe just one thing to add on to what you're saying is, it's doing the work that I do. It's been fascinating, and you know, I see it in my own personal life, but again, also in all the people that I work with in different ways, that sense that we live in like different realities, like, you know, and I think we're seeing it writ large in the political spectrum too. It's like, oh my God, like you seem to live in a completely different world. And it's amazing how we can, even with the people closest to us, we can have a sense of like, you know, different reality. And at the same time, though, as you said it just a few minutes ago, Katrina, there's also a way that, like, the way that I'm judging you, it's like what I think about you is kind of similar to what you think about me. Like the way I'm blaming you for being really selfish and whatever is actually maybe really similar to how you're seeing me. It's just we're seeing it from the other side. Mm-hmm. So it's really fascinating, actually, how that works kind of on both of those levels. And so by being able to just try to understand and get to kind of what do we want that's at a deeper level, where those beliefs might be really different, the ways of doing things really different, but when we get down deeper and deeper, we're all human. We all want the same basic things. And often in a conflict, again, I experience this over and over, the needs, as we say, what we universally want is often pretty similar, you know. That often happens, that we the wants or needs are very overlapping. So Scott, do you have anything you want to add, a story, one of your stories or anything?
Yeah, I want to add two quick things. First off, I want to acknowledge Marshall Rosenberg because he is who sort of changed my life. your life, John, Katrina, Paul. Marshall's no longer with us. He passed away about 5 years ago. But so much of our understanding and learning has come from studying with Marshall. And just what John was just saying, that underneath all of our criticisms, our judgments, our evaluations, all of our uncomfortable emotions towards other people, usually it's just that we have these universal human needs that we're so longing to have met.
Mhm.
And so acknowledging Marshall and acknowledging his influence on so many of us. The other thing I wanted to talk about was something I learned from Marshall, which is the idea of enemy images, and how when soldiers go to war, before they go to the front line or before they're in a position where they have to fight, they are trained to dehumanize the enemy. My grandfather, when he went to Europe to fight in World War II, he wasn't trained to kill Hans and Jürgen or Peter. He was trained to kill the dirty Nazis. If he had fought in the Pacific, it would have been to kill the dirty Japs. Our current military, when they are creating where they're going to drop bombs, they aren't told you're dropping a bomb on a home, and inside that home is Raisuli and Mohammed and their children. No, you're killing the evil terrorists. Now, obviously, we can take this example and all relate to it and go, yeah, wow, enemy images. But you know what? We do that ourselves. Anytime there's somebody who has an idea or a belief or does something we don't like, anytime we go, what an idiot, we just turned them into an enemy image. We just dehumanized them. And think about it. How often do we do that? What an asshole. What a bitch. And when we use those words, we have now escalated our own discomfort into dehumanizing another person. We've gone to war. You know what? We also do that with ourselves. Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Oh my God, I'm such a jerk. And so one of the things that Marshall taught me, that maybe the most important thing I learned from him, is to notice that. Notice when we take a discomfort and we escalate it into dehumanizing ourselves or dehumanizing another person. I'm guessing that everyone watching wants more peace in the world. And probably all of us know that peace begins with ourselves. We need to be the change we want to see in the world. I think we all want more kindness. So let's bring it back to ourselves. So I want to just invite everybody, in the spirit of Marshall, in the spirit of this new inauguration day, in the spirit of Martin Luther King, who taught nonviolence. And Marshall named his process nonviolent communication in honor of Martin Luther King, in honor of Gandhi. Let's all notice and do our very best to stop assigning enemy images to other people. And that's what I wanted to offer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. Yeah, going back to that, all the emotions are driven by precious needs. We, all of us across our country and around the world, we want a sense of safety. We want security. We want peace. We want a space where we can raise our families and celebrate life, to have joy and celebration. And those values are universal. And this tendency towards enemy images that can happen when we're afraid is the quickest way to destroy any sense of well-being. So it's such a wonderful thing to become aware of when we might be participating in that way of speaking into the world, and seek to curb that, and instead just notice, like, whoa, okay, I'm feeling uncomfortable right now with what I'm seeing or hearing in front of me. Right. Feel what's going on, and notice those needs, because the person across from you, they have those same feelings and needs as well. Maybe not in that particular moment, but no doubt those feelings and needs are alive in that other person as well. And that's where we're going to connect in our humanity.
According to our agenda, I think there's another audio we're going to listen to briefly from Eckhart Tolle. Yeah.
So from a higher perspective, what we are witnessing now and millions of people are experiencing now is a collective challenge. And
all over the world, actually.
All over the world, not just here. There's also in America here, there's a division that happens that's basically, if you look at the population or the electorate, half the people live in one kind of universe with one kind of mindset, and the other half live in another alternate universe with another kind of mindset. And that creates a separation. The reason for the separation is that people are so identified with their particular mindset.
Which is what ego is.
That's what ego is, to be identified with mind, with thought structures, with opinions, with viewpoints, with perspectives. To be identified means to derive your sense of self, your sense of who you are, from certain thoughts in the mind. So if you're identified with your viewpoint or opinion, you don't realize that this is a viewpoint or opinion. To you, it is the absolute truth, and it is inseparable from your sense of self.
Right, so you think you are that.
Yes.
So that's why you say, I am a Republican,
That's
am a
right.
Democrat, I am whatever your job is, I am this thing. Yeah.
Yes.
I love this piece because, again, it is when we identify, I am whatever the political label is. I am my beliefs. When you really think you are that, then you're defending that idea as if it is your very own life. And then when we have different ideas, it can really create a lot of conflict because you think you're defending yourself. So I really appreciate how Eckhart Tolle reminds me that when I start really strongly defending my ideas or beliefs, that there's some kind of attachment that I've created, that so I'm reacting rather than being able to go, oh, wait, this is an idea. This is a belief. It doesn't mean that it's the absolute truth. And it allows me to have more space in my being to say, it's the truth that I tend to believe at this time. And it's totally reasonable that someone else could see life in a different way. That creates a whole lot more spaciousness for any kind of dialogue and connection to occur. So John, would you like to add?
Yeah, just a little bit about the promise of mindfulness, really awareness practice. And Eckhart Tolle is very well known now for bringing kind of his inspiration to the our ability to be aware of our own awareness, aware of our mind and body in a way that we, as Katrina, you were just saying, we can be less identified in a way that just opens up possibilities for connection, for taking creative, positive action. So yeah, that we really can shift to a larger sense of self in a way, a self that's beyond our just our mind and body, beyond a kind of limited sense of ourself. And I see this tied to language as well, this phenomena of our language that we often just fall asleep and get entranced by, that we can be aware of that too, and how we use language. And it can either take us into disconnection and suffering and violence, or it can take us into connection and love and compassion and cooperation. And so what Eckhart's pointing to, I think, is just there is this capacity we have as human beings to not be asleep and entranced by this identification. We can, and especially with lots of practice, and including how we use language, that we can really, with that knowledge, I think, and that practice, we can deal with any conflict. And that's the hope I have for what's happening in the world right now, with a new presidency and maybe a new start and a chance maybe to really heal these wounds that are so deep in our US culture and history, and a way to truly reconcile, no matter how much pain and how big the difference is. There really are these abilities with awareness, with language, to heal that and to move through that and get to a very different place. And so that's, I think, what we're here to show and to keep standing for and holding the possibility of, that it really is doable and possible, and there are skills and practices to do it. Yeah.
All right. I think, according to what we've got lined up here, what's happening next is another song from Sister Stone. I see a lot of positive responses to her first song. And I want to encourage you, again, we've got 65 people in the Zoom room, a lot watching on Facebook. Give us your comments, give us your thoughts, and we'll reflect any thoughts, comments, questions as best as we can. So thank you, everybody, for being with us on this really special evening, this big day of transition. And turning it back over to Sister Stone.
Hi, everyone, again. Thank you. Thank you for your words. Yeah, I feel very hopeful, and I never thought I would say that about a government official before. But I do. I feel a sense of hope. I was almost in tears, or I was in tears, just listening to his words. And if nothing else, what he's encouraging as far as humility and putting yourself in another one person's shoes is something that he said. And it's a breath of fresh air, and just pray that his all the actions follow, and we really do find a new way to relate to each other and relate to this planet and learn how to communicate and share. So I'm gonna offer another song. The song is called Warriors, and it's a song about all of the amazing, beautiful people I've met all over the world, and honoring them for their service and their dedication to creating a world that is livable and thrivable for future generations. So here it goes. Okay. Sorry, a little technical thing. My friends, we have deep ties. I call them my friends, family and allies. Sometimes I miss them oh so much, but I know they're out there spreading their good touch. We are warriors of the earth, calling for rebirth. We are warriors of the earth, calling for rebirth. Hey yo, all my people of all walks of life, it's time to stand together on behalf of this life. Relate to each other, relate to this planet, fall in love with our home of which we inhabit. I pray for my relations, lead in the way, everybody dedicated to this beautiful way. Thank you for your service and the part that you play. I'm constantly inspired by you each and every day. I'm in awe of your brilliance and your resilience. In these times that we face, we need courage and grace. I bow to your strength, love and devotion. I feel you, I see you. Let's keep this in motion. Warriors of the earth, calling for rebirth. Our past will cries, and they will weave a legacy of love. We believe all of these soul connections all over the world feel so fortunate to know these heroes. We are warriors of the earth, calling for rebirth. We are warriors of the earth, calling for rebirth. Da, da. We are warriors of the earth, calling for rebirth. Da-dee-da-da-da. We are warriors of the earth, calling for rebirth. Da-da. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
think we're all going to have, hopefully, we're going to have that tune going through our head. You know, you always have like something going through your head. I want that to be going through everybody's head tonight. By the way, people can get a lot more information and music by going to sister-stone.com. That's her website, sister-stone.com. And just briefly tell us a little bit about your new EP that's out or coming out.
Great. So on February 1st, I'm releasing a single and it's called Still Here. And it, it's really for me, one of the most important lessons that I've learned in life is that, conflict, struggle, pain, it polishes us and helps us to become the shiniest gem that we're here to be. And that if we find that ability to transform and see the silver lining and see the lesson within the argument, see the lesson within the challenge that we're facing, that we can transform it into, allow it to form us to who we want to be. And so that is a really dope track that's going to be released on February 1st. And I will share the pre-save link here so you can be the first one to get it when it comes out. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sister Stone. Thank you so much. All right, Katrina, turning it back over to you and John.
All right. So we're going to enter into a demonstration of how our Across the Aisle works. This is something that we've been doing every Wednesday since I joined you a little bit later, but I believe you started in early October, late September, early October. And so we've made it a weekly event where people can come together and have these difficult conversations in a new way and really support healing of our political divide. So John, would you like to share anything or should I bring up the slides?
Yeah, I think my internet got a little wonky for a second there. Does it sound okay now?
Yes.
Okay, well, I missed some of what you said, most of it, but I'll say just a couple words and then yes, let's go into the slides. But yeah, basically we and the four of us, Paul and Corey and Katrina and myself, over time we sort of worked out a process that it seemed like it just seems to be, it's pretty simple really, but just powerful in what we see happening when people doing it that have different political perspectives. And so it's basically taking turns speaking, listening, and then reflecting back what we're hearing and going through 4 questions, which we'll go over in a moment. Just what I really believe is like, whether it's one-on-one or in a group setting or whatever, if there's a structure that holds us and what I call empathic structure, then we can use the skills we have. It's like kind of guideposts or, when we're in a bowling alley, those bumpers that come up, keeps the bowling ball in the lane. It's like that. And it's really miraculous almost what can happen when we're kind of focused that way. And so this is what we've come up with over some trial and error, and we've been doing for months now, every week. And yeah, so we have some slides that we show with that sometimes, and Katrina's gonna show some of that.
Yeah, the structure really does make all the difference. let's see if I can open this to full screen. I'm not quite sure how to, so I'm going to leave it right here. So the 4 questions that we invite people to answer in this across the aisle are the ones you're seeing right here. What is the issue or topic you want to speak about? So we try and get people to really focus in on what is going to be most important, kind of what is the headline. The second one is to understand that whatever that topic is, it's having some kind of impact on you and the way you're viewing the world. So we ask you to share that with us. What meaning are you giving this to this topic? Then the next piece is that there's emotional impact of how you're experiencing it. Would you share with us what those emotions are? And then from that, there's always some longing. There's something that we really want to be different in some way, something that we value. And so we invite people to share what that is as well. And so, so when somebody has shared that, and they're complete in their questions, then we invite the next person to share. We love it if we can get somebody who has a very different view of reality to share next, because it creates a wonderful dynamic for giving empathy to something that's not necessarily the way you're viewing reality. So the next person who wants to share, before they answer these 4 questions, we have them reflect back to the first person what they heard until that first person is feeling heard, understood, and valued for what they have shared. So we wait until that person says, yep, you got me. And so doing this really, it can require, if you're talking across the aisle, it's important to recognize that somebody who sees life different than you, they're not bad, stupid, or wrong. They're perceiving life from a very different lens. And so, so we seek to understand what's the lens that they're looking through, again, so we're able to fulfill these 3 goals of everybody feeling heard, understood, and valued. I love this quote from the Dalai Lama. Only the development of compassion and understanding for others can bring us the tranquility and happiness we all seek. I know for a while I got caught up in thinking, if you just agree with me, if you see things the way I see them, then I will have peace and tranquility and all will be well. And it turns out that actually having compassion and understanding does a whole lot more, allowing somebody to see life as they do. Not everyone's going to see life the way I do. Oh, well, I tried. I can find more tranquility. We can all find more tranquility by going, okay, this is how I see it. That's how you see it. Let's seek to build understanding for each other and really connect in our humanity. So that's one piece that we're doing is
Katrina, let me just offer something right there. So
absolutely.
That maybe something that people have experienced somewhat in their lives, that when we do give that kind of understanding, the way the Dalai Lama described that, often the barriers, the defenses, the guard comes down, and that other people are more open to a different perspective if we're not trying to kind of bash them with it. Mm-hmm. So it's not about not wanting people to hear our perspective or vice versa, to have influence over each other and try to, basically, I think we often want to contribute to each other in what we think is really valuable, right? But mm-hmm. if paradoxically we can show a lot of understanding, acceptance of other people's, then it actually makes changing our own mind or others' minds even more likely and more powerful. How that can happen just very organically instead of trying to force it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you saying that, John. We're not seeking to convince each other that the way we see things are right in the way we do this dialogue. And being able to hear each other actually opens up space for us to consider the world outside of our box of thinking. So there is a real magic that can occur inside of this dialogue.
And we've seen it happen a lot. I mean, I've experienced it on or across the aisles, how I've heard things that suddenly my mind feels way expanded out of where I was before, just by witnessing or being part of these exchanges of people sharing their different perspectives. It's really kind of amazing how we can just keep expanding our what we can hold and kind of assimilate in a way. Yeah.
Absolutely. I saw Corey nodding his head on that. And I know other people have also had that experience. So, yeah.
So should we talk about we have a panel of people. Normally what we do this every week, and people just come, and whoever comes, and we ask who wants to come forward, and it's pretty organic. But for the sake of this special event tonight, we specially asked some people to come on with us and be part of a panel of folks that would demonstrate the process for everybody else who's watching out there in Zoom or Facebook land. And so Katrina, would now be a time to bring those people on, or is there anything else you want to say before that?
Well, another thing we have been playing with, I don't know if we'll do this today, but sometimes we also offer an opportunity to do role play dialogues, and that can also be very powerful. John, it also takes longer, so we may not demonstrate that today. But if you have somebody where you've had a difficult conversation, you've talked politics and it's not going well, there's been tension building, it's wonderful to come to across the aisle, and you can actually have an opportunity to practice those conversations in role play. It can be incredibly powerful. So I wanted to mention that that's another thing that we offer in this weekly experience. And I'm posting a link to information on Across the Aisle, and also the registration link in our chat here on Zoom. I know Scott can also post that on Facebook for people who want to see what it's about and join us. All right, so yeah, I'd love to see who in our panel might be interested in speaking first. Perhaps we could have a raise of hands. If there's some brave soul who would love to start us out, you could raise
those
your
questions, right? To just go through the questions and with, if you're willing, with our support, and we'll just go right into it for a bit. And for folks that want, each person we've invited, if you want to have a turn, and in whatever order y'all want to do it. So yeah, does anybody want to go first with something you'd like to share? A political perspective, something about your experience of politics that.
I see the people are being shy, and I'm going to nominate Oshala, just because she has a very dynamic points of view that are not necessarily what everybody might necessarily immediately say, oh yeah. So if you don't mind, Oshala, I am nominating you, and I've put the spotlight on you. But you got to unmute.
For you first.
So Katrina, is all right if when we do Across the Aisle each week, we take turns facilitating. And so, yeah, if it's all right, I go first. So Oshala. Hi, Oshala. It's really great to be with you this way. And
hello, blessings, greetings.
Yeah. So it's okay if I kind of guide a little bit support through those four questions?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. So first question is an area or topic you might, in the political domain, something you would want to express, but in a particular area to focus. Do you have something you want to pick like that? Some topic or area?
Well,
or issue?
I was attracted to this call. I was attracted to this Zoom. Specifically because, I saw that somebody I wouldn't have recognized necessarily as the stereotype of a Trump supporter, for instance, was a Trump supporter. So I was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. So, I mean, this is a conversation that I'd be really interested in listening to, because there's this view of Trump supporters that are supposed to all be my enemies, right? That that they're all called Trumpers, which I think is really insulting, actually, to call them that. First of all, I want to say didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Biden. For me as a Black person in the Black community, the Native American saying, left wing, right wing, same bird. So none of them have been all that great, for us. And that's just my feeling. So, but I'm also my husband is from Africa. He's from Cameroon. And so throughout this whole process, I've watched him develop, his way of looking at it, which is really outside of the box of how we look at things in America. Because from an African perspective, there are very real threats, by particular parties on their continent that we don't always focus on as Americans, because we're absorbed, humanly, we're absorbed in our own thing. So I knew that the New Age, New Thought community has a gentle way of communicating. So I wanted to see how that communication was happening. 74 million people in this country. I refused to believe that all of them were racist yahoos. I'm like, come on, that's a lot of people. All of them are racist yahoos. I can't really go there. And so within that, it made me very curious to see, what are the different views? And so as I opened myself up to what are people, I have some friends, some Black friends who voted for Trump, and and it's like, oh, okay, I can see that. I can see what, where you were coming from. And where I'm at now is also, I think why Scott brought me on this call is because he sent me that image of Biden standing in front of the water, making this comment about the people who had lost their lives in the pandemic. And how inspiring that was, and how different that was than how Trump would have done that. And I guess the response, and Scott can speak a little more on it, I was like, that's great that he's doing that. And I'm always like, people that have lost their lives, of course, but I feel so manipulated, emotionally manipulated, during times like these, during times like when people feel like they're wanting to yank my chain. They want me to emotionally come into where they're coming from. And and so when Scott sent me that, my response was like, time will tell. We will see. What really would have impressed me is that you start off your presidency saying, what, we want to honor all the people who were, raped and killed and murdered and hung, and all the genocide that we've conducted in this country. And let's start looking at reparations, and let's start looking at treaty rights, right? Yeah. So
can I say with you so far? Just so it's maybe the area you're focusing on, if I'm hearing it right, by the end is the Biden presidency and what so far you've heard him say and seen him do. And then this is kind of some of the ways you're thinking about him and the presidency, what you just said. Yeah, because those are the first two questions as I'm kind of tracking it. And if you feel ready, do you want to go to, if you're ready to go to how you feel about this right now, as you're talking about this and thinking about it, about, Biden and everything you just said, what emotions are you feeling in your body if you're ready and willing and wanting to go there?
Well, I feel a sadness. I really do. I feel sad that there's this sense that you're now coming and telling us that you're on this big white horse to save us. And that the person, because the last person had such an unfortunate personality, and that we're going towards fascism with that person, that as if we're not under fascism right now. So I feel really sad that there's this, like we're going to be put into a sleepwalking. That's what I feel. I don't feel celebratory.
Sadness about that, about thinking that might be what could happen, just feeling some sadness or disappointment about that possibility. Yes, because it has been happening. Yes. I mean, because that's the reality. Because that's how we got Trump. That's what's happened. Right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm definitely. I wouldn't say I'm mad, because I'm just used to that hypocritical reality, that double standard. Yes. As we see something that seems to be worse, it's like three-card Annie. Yes. Like trying to get you to focus on this, but this is really what's going on out there. Yeah. Okay. And do you want to go to the fourth question? Now, what do you want? What do you want to see, or what do you want for yourself, or what do you want maybe that we all want at some level?
I would really like for us, and well, I would like to, because I'm really into collectives and cooperatives. You know, I come from a tight-knit community. You know, for us to really look at the systemic changes in this country, in order for us to have America finally not be an imperialistic, militaristic place, that it would have to be a true populace, professors from academia, labor, student movement, you know, even like, what are the white supremacists thinking? You know, I mean, I don't have to like you. I don't have to like them. I don't need to go to school with you. I don't, you know, nothing. As long as you're not trying to kill me. Like, what is it that, you know, where are our common, I'd like to see America finally come together and say, look, you know, we're founded on genocide. We're founded on slavery.
Acknowledging these things.
You know, yeah, acknowledging this and not just saying, oh, let's just move on and, you know, and let's focus on the pandemic. I get the pandemic, but people have been living up a lot worse than the pandemic. And so, you know, I would love to see really some honesty of this nation.
Yes.
Really, that's what I would really like to see. And that what will it take for us to come across not just the aisle, but to really come across the different sectors. Small businesses have been decimated.
Yes.
You know, what is it going to take us to get rid of our fear that we're going to die, you know, from this pandemic, while there's death all around us from people dying on the street every day?
Yeah.
How are we going to come to terms with that as a country?
Yes. Yes. Wow. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And do you feel complete for the moment? I'm sure there's so much more, but for right now, does that?
I feel complete.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So now, Katrina or Scott, who's ever facilitating the other panels, would someone like to come on next that would maybe have a different perspective than Oshala, but first be willing to say what you heard her say, and then you, Oshala, get to clarify. If it's not quite accurate, you get to kind of fine tune that until you feel like you've been gotten. So would someone like to come on next to do that? Of our
See
panel.
Claire raising her hand.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Claire, I'm putting the spotlight on you.
Hi, Claire.
Hi. God, I feel kind of nervous just to put that out there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for doing this and helping make this a safe space to hear each other and be honest with each other. So, are you first willing to let Oshala know what you heard?
Well, of course, yes. Yeah. I mean, that's where the nerves are, I think, is in wanting to do that well.
Okay. Well, and even if you don't get it right or all right, you know, she can just clarify, right? We do our best to try to hear, and we're not always perfect, right? So whatever you heard, and she can clarify.
Okay, great. So, and Oshala, this won't necessarily be in the order you said it. So it's just going to kind of pop up like popcorn style. But yeah, I was struck by certain things. I have this image from what you said of Biden by the water, and that feels like that was an important communication you had with your friend around that highlighted something for you, as I heard it, which was that you wanted more and bigger, like stronger promises, stronger visible action already from the new president that wasn't just focused on COVID and the losses of COVID, but that actually travels all the way back through the history of genocide and oppression and disrespect and disregarding other people's cultures, slavery, racism, land grabbing, like just everything that this country's done wrong. It feels important. What I'm hearing is that it feels really important to you that that's taken seriously, and that if you are going to put your trust in this person that's now called the president, you need to see some genuine both intention, statement of intention, but also results quite fast. And I don't know if this is an appropriate thing to say in this context, but I just want to say it anyway. It feels to me like if you could see enough to put your trust in him, that you'd put everything behind him. Like whoever the leader was, if you felt like that person was worthy, trustable, transparent, that you would actually, there's a generosity of spirit and effort that I sense that you would put behind that person, no matter who they were, actually.
How about let's check out, how is it so far, Oshala? Is she getting it?
She's right on the mark. Thank you, Claire, for hearing me.
And what did you hear she's feeling? Because that really connects us too. What feeling?
Thank you. Yeah, sadness.
Yeah.
Sadness. And I think disappointment. But the sadness.
Yeah.
And again, tell me if I'm going slightly off on the wrong track here, but the sadness, because I might be projecting myself into this, the sadness of the lack of weaving people together, like people getting left behind, people, small businesses devastated, just people being sort of disenfranchised from the belonging to a community that needs a heartbeat that represents, genuinely, visibly, trackably represents everybody and their needs.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I mean, very sad. I mean, like, just shaking my head sad, like shaking my head real hard sad. Yeah. I mean, so that's just what I'm overwhelmingly feeling today. I can't even, at least Trump kept us on our toes. I'm serious. It's like we've been sleepwalking for too long, like nothing is going on, like everything's just fine. And so, yeah, it's a deep sadness in my heart. Like, I just don't even, like, I'm almost I've just almost given up for this country. Seriously.
Yeah.
But I don't give up in life, and I don't give up in the Most High. And I think that we're extremely blessed by life itself. But United States of America, we are under fascism with all this going on, tech companies censoring and all these things that ironically the Trump people were the ones that were pointing out. And yet we were so blind and focusing on the hate of him that we weren't just looking at this whole picture of all of us as United States Americans. So yeah.
I heard honesty in that too, Oshala. I heard honesty. I don't know if Claire, you heard that part. You might have already reflected that a little bit, but that kind of wanting to really trust.
Yes, but I think that's key.
Yeah. Okay, Oshala, do you feeling understood? You feeling heard and gotten?
Yeah, I do. And I think that this is a very good conversation, and this is where it starts. If it could just spread so that, I feel heard. Thank you for your facilitation of that.
I just want to come in for a quick moment, because of course we so want to emphasize feelings, and the feelings I'm imagining are deep disillusionment that is bordering on hopelessness, and those are both very uncomfortable feelings to have. And I'm just wondering, Oshala, if that would be accurate. If I'm imagining you, is there a deep disillusionment bordering on hopelessness?
Well, first of all, Scott, I'm never going to be hopeless because I feel extremely blessed, right? So I'm never going to feel hopeless. Now, for this country, yeah, there may be some of that, but I feel that there's always a higher power at work. So I don't know. Hopelessness is never how I would frame myself, not at all.
Deep pain and sadness about all the things you said, yeah.
And just for the polarization, it's like we have a puppet master that is attempting to have us fight each other.
Mhm.
all the time, and it's working really well.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Oshala, and thank you so much, Claire, for just what I really saw you doing something that I don't know if I said explicitly, but like even whatever we think or agree or disagree, to try to put that aside and just try to hear what's true for the other person. I love how you did that, Claire. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. Thanks, Oshala.
And now it's your turn, Claire. I'll pass the facilitation to Katrina. And it's Claire's turn to go through the 4 questions if you're willing and share something. So Katrina, to you as facilitator.
Yes. So Claire, what's the topic that you would like to talk about?
Well, that's the trouble. That's a really good question. And I'm not entirely sure. I've been trying to write down a few things. So I'm thinking what would really help me is to just have a moment of just being quiet together to see what rises as the most presenting thought or feeling. Is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so I know John had asked for a contrast. This may not be a contrast, but that's too bad.
Totally fine.
So when I closed my eyes, the thing that came forward, I don't know why that struck such a chord with me, this image of Biden by the water. I don't even see it. I woke up early. I went to bed late this morning and set the alarm because it's like I have to watch this inauguration. I have to check that this is actually not just, I'm not just like dreaming, that something is going to change. So I set the alarm, I woke up, I started watching it. And I was curious at what point would I get it, that this isn't just play acting, that this is an actual shift of transfer of power. And I kept checking the clock because I knew at 9 o'clock here, a.m. in California, that person would be without power, like the power would fall away. And that was important to me, regardless of the inauguration. It's like they were both relevant. But when I closed my eyes and asked, what do I want to talk about? What's the topic? It is to do with believing. Like I recognize that I'm going to speak for myself, but I feel like I'm not just speaking for myself. That I have a lot of trauma to let go of. Living in this country for 4 years, but longer because of the presidential campaigns, with a person who seemed so filled with a need for vengeance.
So yeah, I'm really hearing that the information stream, one of the things we talked about earlier is different people have different information streams. So the information stream that you're seeing is really strongly validating that the president who has left has a need for vengeance.
It's what I'm not sure if you're questioning the reality I'm sharing with you. It sounds a little bit like you might be. So that's confusing because if you're just meant to be mirroring me, that didn't feel like a mirroring. It felt like an interpretation, just so you know.
Okay.
So perhaps you could clarify the process, and that way I can be clear about it.
So one thing is the topic, and a challenge that we have is to be able to recognize what is maybe inarguably something that happens in the world versus what's the meaning that we give it, what's an interpretation that we give it. So there was a transfer from one president to the next president.
Yeah.
And then there's some interpretations. And so there's an interpretation that I heard that the former president had this need for vengeance. And not everybody in the world would agree with that. So that's where there's an interpretation. And that interpretation, no doubt, is strongly validated by the things that you're seeing in the news that you're watching. There are other people in the world who voted for this man and clearly have a different interpretation. So they must be seeing different information that leads them to a different interpretation. And so one of the things that's really important is to recognize that this is the way you're seeing it. And I'm not saying that it's true or false. All I'm saying is that this is the way you're seeing it, which gives space for the reality that some people won't agree with that. And yet this is how it's occurring for you, which is giving you an experience.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I can tell I'm wanting to jump on top of what you're saying. The reason for that is a request. In order to do the first question well, I need more time to hang out there before I start separating it out and thinking of what other people might be thinking. I have to go in and feel. So the third question about the emotions I'm feeling, for me, those are connected to the first question. They're very close. For me, the way my system works is that after I've had a chance to do that, then I can become more intellectual. Then I can explore the story I'm making. But I need, if I don't get that, I'm going to resist you because I can feel it. I can feel the resistance. It's like, hey, hang on a minute. You asked me for a topic and I'm trying to find it.
Yeah.
So I thought the topic was going to be about believing, this is going to sound a bit crazy, but believing that this new president is actually real, like that this whole system is now going to change and that the problems we're going to face will be different problems, but problems I guess I'm more used to. So if I could just finish my thought, the piece to do with the vengeance was kind of a side story that wasn't really relevant.
Okay.
And I sometimes just need to get something out of my system in order to find out what's relevant, what's true, what matters. And then it can go deeper.
Yes. I hear that. Given the way you experienced today, what emotions, the way you experienced the inauguration, the way you experienced the outgoing president, the incoming president, what are the emotions that are present for you?
It's kind of like this tentative relief. So I cried at different points during the whole inauguration. And I tried to join in. Like every so often I'd clap. Like I was in bed. So it's kind of funny. But I'd clap when other people were clapping or when I felt moved. And I was trying to participate because I wanted to make it visceral. I wanted to make it real. I needed this to be real.
Mm-hmm.
So there's listening to his speech was fantastic, and I was smiling because I'm remembering something very specific about today that made sense to me, and it kind of tells the whole story. And it was the fact that I was going to talk with John about tonight, and we planned to talk at 4:00 my time, our time. What I discovered was that the first new press briefing was happening at 4:00. And I said to John, I have to listen to that. And I never went online to watch the press briefings because I had found them I couldn't swallow them. They were so confrontational and no one ever answered a question. I just said to him, I've got to watch this because people are going to ask questions and they're actually going to answer them. We'll actually learn something about what's happening. And just that tiny thing was massive for me. It's like, wow. Yeah. So
like a sense of joy, relief. There's some
yeah, something I could hold on to.
Some joy, enthusiasm, excitement.
Something tangible. It's like, wow, we're actually going to have information. I don't know if we'll get all the information. Of course, we don't know what we don't get told.
Mm-hmm.
But just that I knew that there would be a reasonable conversation.
Mm-hmm.
This is my assumption, that this is what a reasonable conversation looks like, that someone asks a question and someone tries to answer it. They don't shut them down. They don't ridicule them. They don't make them wrong or shame them in public or tell them it's a stupid question. But they actually have a conversation. And so what's the meaning I give that? That we're about to enter a sane world. That's the story that I'm living in for a moment, just enjoying this story. That now the world will at least be conversational, like we can actually have heads of states having conversations if we want to try and change something. And again, I know this is part story because I don't know what I don't know.
Sure. I'm also hearing inside of it like a celebration because it's in alignment with some of that, the question number 4, what is it that I want to see happen?
Yes, thank you. I like question number 4. It's a relief to come to that question.
Mm-hmm.
Because what do I want? I want to be able to trust the people that get voted into power. I want to be able to know that I'll get told what matters.
Yes.
Yeah, I want them to be reliable and honest and to be genuinely inclusive. I mean, God, there's so much I want. I want full-on reparations, restorative justice that starts with an apology, an embodied apology to all the peoples that have been wronged, but then moves forward into actions that show reciprocity, that show restorative justice. So the giving back of, or the negotiating. What do you need? And something that rehumanizes the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want.
Awesome. Thank you. Are you feeling complete enough?
I am. There's a little part of me that wants to check. I haven't like run you over with my explicit kind of requests near the beginning. I want to check in with you about that.
I'm really appreciating your sharing. I didn't feel like there was any running over. I'm hearing a lot of enthusiasm. So yeah, thank you for being willing to participate in this across the aisle.
Well, thank you too, Katerina. I actually can feel my energy is really different from at the beginning. So that something happened, and obviously you were a facilitator of that. So thank you, co-facilitator.
Good. So thank you. All right, so we're gonna look to the panel again to see who is feeling moved to share next. Again, with the request that you reflect back what you heard from Claire before you share what it is you're moved to share. And again, we do appreciate it if you have some kind of different perspective, because that can make it very interesting. Also want to take a moment to acknowledge that it has been challenging for us to find people who have a very strongly conservative perspective to come forth. We have had in our across the aisle people across the spectrum, and I think especially right now, there are people who are conservative and support Trump. There's a lot who are not feeling safe to do that in the open environment as we have on our live stream. There's been a lot of enemy images, and I'm feeling some sense of mourning. We really desire to create a space of safety for everyone to be heard and valued, and having the conservative viewpoint is such a gift in helping to build bridges of understanding. So I wanted to acknowledge that there are people who might like to have their voice heard and maybe are not feeling safe right now. I see you, and your voice matters. So we don't have anybody chomping at the bit to speak next. Wondering if anybody's feeling an impulse. Go ahead, Scott.
I'm just wondering, is it all right to extend the invitation to the audience? If there's anybody, because we've got 42 people in the Zoom room that are attendees. So if anybody, would it be okay if there's an attendee who is willing to speak from a more conservative point of view? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if so, just put your name in the chat box and I will promote you to panelist.
So
but let's see if give people in a panel a little more time, maybe. I'm glad you asked to see if there are people that might want to come forward in the audience, and some folks need a little time to kind of get the courage up to go next. And I also want the people that we invited and brought on. So anybody who's on our panel that wants to go next.
I also wanted to just acknowledge, in terms of time, I think this will need to be our final person, so that we will have an opportunity to wrap up at 8 o'clock as we had previously agreed. And it looks like Michael, you are interested? Okay, great. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, so would you be willing to reflect back what you heard from Claire so that she can feel heard?
Oh, wow. Well, I want to first of all thank Claire for the personal advocacy of herself to kind of say where you are. I was really impressed with your courage and bravery. And I heard you saying, it's almost waking up from a dream, wondering if this is real. Is it really going to happen? Am I going to be faked out and the inauguration won't happen? Is this some trick? Please let it be real. There's a sense, this maybe a little anxiety about really wanting it to happen so it can be done in the books behind you. Am I on the right track, Claire? I don't see Claire anymore.
She's waving her fingers and saying yes.
Claire is gone. Okay.
Here.
Yeah. It's like you've been living this bad dream this whole time, and this hope, this moment was this sense of maybe it's over and we're going to have a new start and we can be show up in the world differently, and just some mourning and celebration kind of being held together, right? But this has been so painful, but hey, there's all of this possibility that what could happen. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't actually know the meaning of the one part where I shared about I was lying in bed, clapping or crying and trying to participate to make it physically.
Yes.
There's a part of me that wants to know, did anyone else do that? Because, it's the sort of thing you'd normally do in someone's company, but it's like, I have to eat this. Like somehow.
You have to validate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to literally embody it, right? Like, use your body to say, yes, this is real. It's really happening. I'm here. This is not a dream. It's like pinching yourself.
Yeah. And somehow I'm contributing. I'm there. I'm in it. I'm here. I'm doing it. I'm seeing it. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Michael.
Hey, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
So I really wanted Monica
to on to John so that he can then do this next part with you, Michael. This is part of our passing the baton.
Oh, right.
So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah. So what do you want to focus on, Michael?
I think I want to, talk about the storm on the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
And and for me, the double standard of seeing the patience with white bodies breaking in and assaulting police officers and with all kind of weapons, and the images of the Confederate flag, which for me has so many symbolism tied into it, in terms of race and racism, and really feeling some sadness and even anger at black bodies dying at, the least movement in the car, marching outside far from the White House, not assaulting any officers,
Mm,
um, and just the level of disrespect for black and brown bodies
mm,
that we haven't been human to so many.
mm,
And for me, there is this connection with the Confederate and white supremacists um, that still occurs, and it's just hurtful that black folks are still fighting for citizenship, to be the citizens, not
mm,
just the citizen of America, but even for some citizens of the human species. We're
mm,
still fighting for the dignity to belong.
mm,
So, um, and what do I want? Gosh, that's hard. I think fairness. Um, And there's a part of me saying justice, but there's a part of me resisting that word, that
mm,
almost like that's not enough.
mm,
Um, but the sense of our shared humanity, that
mm,
you see the humanity in Black people,
mm,
and our citizenship, right? That we are treated with the same level of care and offered the same um, pause and caution when dealing with law enforcement. So,
yes, yes,
so yeah.
yes. Thank you. And about the third question, the feeling, I heard hurt. You said hurtful, but hurt. Is there any more about the emotions, or is that really
There
kind
was there was a couple. There's hurt. There is sadness. There is anger, and the truth be told, um, um, anger at all of her cousins and every relative of emotions that
mm,
is probably there.
mm,
Um, in this moment, I'm not feeling rage, but there's moments that I feel rage,
yeah,
and that's the rage that is connected to the larger systemic racism against Black and Brown people.
mm,
Um, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because I have some skills to kind of navigate these waters,
mm,
and to at times unblend myself from that, so I can have some clarity in my thinking about how I
yeah,
see things, just to go forward. But so yeah, all of
yeah,
those. I think the big ones would be hurt, sadness, anger. Hmm.
yes. Thank you. Thank you. So, Katrina and Scott, I'd like to see if there's one more person that really would like to go before we stop, I can go past the hour if others can, but that's what I'd like to just do if possible. Both of you
Yeah,
willing to do that?
I'm totally good with going later. And there was somebody in the audience who's a conservative, more conservative, named Daniel. So, Daniel, if you're willing, I will promote you to panelist. But if there's one of our already existing panelists who wants to go, of course, I
Yeah.
guess they would get
I'd like
first.
to
But
check first. Yeah,
yeah,
of
of
those
course.
that we invited on the panel, any of you wanting to go?
I'll
I
reflect.
see, I see Harvey. Yes.
Okay, Harvey.
I'll reflect. Michael, uh, I heard you talk about observing how the insurrectionists, if you will, that stormed the Capitol seem to be treated very differently than had they been people of color. And it was quite an obvious cause you clearly a strong reaction to that, as it did, I suppose, lots of other people. And the ramifications of people of color not being treated fairly or being seen as being human, let alone having justice, but being just treated humanely and fairly, and wishes of corrections in the whole system. Am I close to you?
And what emotions, Harvey, did you hear?
There's clearly anger,
Mm.
probably some sadness, but
Sadness.
express the real anger and sometimes rage, and it's understandable.
And I heard hurt, sadness and hurt.
And hurt. Yeah, I could see that.
So let's check with Michael and see. Michael, is you feeling heard? Is there anything you want to clarify or say that didn't get reflected back?
No, there's a part of me in this moment having some consideration for where we are in the evening.
Mm.
And so I'm okay with the reflection from Harvey in terms of heard. I think there's more, but I think more will take more time. So I'm good with where we are. Yeah, that I would if he had said that to me, I'd feel that he was listening.
He was hearing you. Yeah. Okay. All right. So it sounds like for the context in the moment, you feel heard enough.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for what you shared. And thank you, Harvey, for saying what you heard. So again, what we're doing is trying to hear each other, even if we disagree, whether we agree or disagree, trying to hear what someone else is saying. So thank you, Harvey, for you doing that. And I'll pass it back to Katrina, and we'll see, time wise, if we want to go a little more, or
Love to hear a
I
conservative.
like what we're doing. So
If
All
there's a
right.
conservative out there, we'd love to hear from them.
So thank you, Michael, and thank you, Harvey. Harvey, what's the topic that you would like to speak on this evening?
That's a tough one for me because my interests are so broad when it comes to politics. It covers a wide range of things. But one of the things, having been politically fascinated my entire life, and I've lived through a number of presidencies, starting as a child with Truman, which takes us through a number of presidential administrations. But and I've always had, regardless of who took the White House, always had a sense of hope. That no one terrible president can destroy the country. And then along came Trump. And when I realized that Trump has the number of supporters that he has, it gives me real concern for the future of the country. Really, and that insurrection that Michael highlighted. When anyone stops and thinks for a moment, had they succeeded in killing representatives, we would have had a real dictatorship on our hands. We came very close, and I don't think people fully appreciate how close that came, and that's frightening and very concerning for the future of the country. And that's the way dictatorships start. It's nothing historically, nothing unusual. This is what happened in Europe. We've seen this before, so it's very disturbing.
Yeah, so I'm hearing the topic, I'm hearing some of the meaning, and I heard you starting to go into the feelings, and I'm wondering if you might go deeper into those feelings. I heard disturbing. Would you share more? And concerning, I heard.
The feeling of loss of hope causes a certain amount of pain when I think about it, because I've always been a very hopeful person. I see what's going on in this country, and I have dialogue with lots of conservatives. I feel quite, versant with their feelings and their thinking, and it's disturbing. It's very disturbing. You know, this across the aisle thing that we guys do is fantastic.
Mm.
I commend. I think the world of you guys. I think you've done a great job. You guys are brilliant, and I love what you contribute. But as far as feelings are concerned, yes, very, very, very upsetting, very disturbing.
Mhm.
But Biden, of course, with his unity message, presents a certain amount of hope.
All right. That sounds like a great segue to hear more about what is it that you really want? What would you love to see?
I would like 74 million people to come around and recognize that we're all on the same page at some level. We all, like you guys have pointed out, we all basically want the same things at some level. How we get there is another story, but just to have people stop being so hard and a little more open to progress, and give everyone a fair shake. It's about time. 200 some odd years, it's about time. To think that that the Civil War was fought largely over slavery, and blacks in this country got a raw deal, and it never stopped. They got their land taken away from them. And they're disenfranchised at every turn.
Mhm.
This whole election that was a fraud was directed at black voters. It's just never stops. Just never stops.
So I'd love to hear you reaffirm and reassert what it is, what is that you want here?
Good question. I would like the temperature to be dropped and people to come around and start agreeing on what to do instead of fighting each other. Just the
More
problem.
agreement,
How do we solve? We got problems. How do we solve it?
cooperation.
I want to see people say, "We got a problem. What do we do? How do we fix it?"
Some working together.
All this stupid fighting.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps.
Thank you. Thank you. It does.
Good. Again, I think you guys are doing a fantastic job.
Well, thank you, Harvey.
I think you guys are wonderful.
Thank you. John, I want to check in with you as it relates to time and how we might move forward.
Yeah, well, I see where we are on time, and I thought of asking that of somebody that identifies as more conservative and would like a chance to speak, and if you're willing to say what you heard Harvey say first, I want to give that option. I think that's if we hear from one more person, I would love it to be somebody. And I saw something on the chat about that too, of really wanting to hear from someone that really identifies more on the political right and the conservative view. And so, if that's okay with Katrina and Scott and everybody else, I'd like to just check and see if somebody who identifies that way would like to go as our last person.
We are scanning the chat box, waiting to see if someone volunteers.
And we, as Katrina spoke to, hope this is a safe space to be heard and to be cared about and valued, whatever we might have in our differences of beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if not, that's okay. Understandable that maybe it's hard to trust that or what, but
very understandable that it's hard to trust that, because these enemy images that we were talking about earlier are so prevalent. Our media streams, right? We've got two very different channels. And again, they're pointing the finger at the other one and creating name calling and supporting some really dehumanizing ways of treating people. So we are so committed to having a different space here where we're connecting human to human. And we know that it feels very unsafe in general in our world for somebody who identifies more as left-wing to talk to people who are in right-wing groups, and vice versa. Hard for somebody who has more of a conservative viewpoint talk openly in a group that is more left-wing. And so we're seeking to bring the healing to that divide. And your voice absolutely matters. And we know that you are coming from the best of intentions, that you value peace and safety just as much as anyone else.
So, but if no one wants to go, then we can start to move into the wrapping up of our show. So anybody?
Shall we, Sister Stone had one last song. Perhaps maybe have her do her final song. And during that time, if somebody volunteers from the audience, I'll promote them to panelists. Otherwise, then we can conclude. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, Sister Stone, I'm turning it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm appreciating this dialogue so deeply, and it feels so needed. And I'm so thankful that you have created this platform. And it's an honor to be a witness to everything that's been shared, and just the gentleness and delicacy of which the mirroring and support and hearing is happening. And yeah, so thank you all. So I'm going to share one last song tonight with all of you. And the song for me is a prayer. It's a prayer for our collective unity, to come together as people and recognize that we all are from the earth, and you know, and that we can work with the higher powers, whatever it is for us, spirit, creator, God, or nothing at all, to support us in seeing this interconnectivity that we have through prayer and through our higher powers. So without further ado, again, anyone that's just tuning in, my name is Sister Stone. You can find me on Spotify and all other platforms, iTunes. So, all right, here it goes.
It's 11 o'clock.
Get right behind that. I get right behind that. I get right behind that. I get right behind that. Follow me, see where it goes. Stay true, stay on the road. Make your offering, reciprocal feeling. Let it sing, let your heart ring. Be in right relation, good vibration. Life is sweet, all that water brings. So much to be thankful for. Focus on the prayer. Water, wind, fire, air. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Yo, there's a higher power and they hear sincerity. Speak your prayers, cry your tears, specificity. This road of life is rugged, it will put you to the test. It will bring you out, love you down to your essence. Get down on your knees, close to Mama Earth. Think about your loved ones, put your family first. It's all about relations and how we tend to them. Reciprocal relations, human and non-human kin. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Yo, always ask permission, only take what you need. It's time to flip the script of this capitalist greed. Pay her close attention, spread around the seeds. Voices to the marginalized, empowerment to lead. Feed the holy with your tears, beautiful words and poetry. Listen and respect of all living beings. I came here to remind you, you are of the earth. The more we reconnect, the more we find our worth. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Father Sky, walk with you side by side. Holy Creator, Mother Earth. Mother Earth, I walk with you. Ooh, thank you.
Whoa, oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that people can, two things, you can get more of her by going to sister-stone.com, showing the website sister-stone.com. She'll be back on Saturday Night Alive on February 13th, our Valentine's Love show. And she's also got that new EP coming out, and we'll put the link in where people can pre-order. Sister Stone, thank you so much.
Thank you. Such an honor always. I really appreciate your encouragement and support of my music and my work. So thank you.
All right, going back to Katrina and John, I guess, to wrap us up.
Thank you. You know, I really, there's a couple things coming up for me. One is that we have not yet reflected back Harvey, so I want to make sure we have an opportunity to reflect him back. And I also wanted to, I know I've spoken to it a couple times. We actually did have a couple people with more conservative voices who had volunteered to be on the panel, and for whatever reason have chosen not to speak their voices. So we've definitely seen in our chat thread people saying, please, we would love to hear conservative voices. And we know that it's really important that people feel safe. This is, you know, in or across the aisle, it is a smaller container. We've got our Zoom room, we do our introduction online, but then it's just the people who are in the room. So it's more of a closed container. There is something that can be more challenging when it's live streaming. It's like, okay, whatever I say, I have no idea who's going to hear it. And so we understand that can add some sense of less safety. And yeah, we honor people for taking care of themselves because emotional safety is so important right now. I acknowledge that there are many people in our country who do not trust that that Biden came into the office in a fair way, and that the media that they're looking at is supporting that lack of trust. And there's other people who very much do trust it and believe that he's in the office according to a true democracy. And so this is a challenge that we have, is that we've talked about, there's two different worlds. For the people who believe it was true, there's massive relief for a lot of people. And there's some Republicans who maybe are like, yeah, you know, would have preferred Trump, but I'm okay with the outcome. And then there's some people who right now are very frightened. If I just a moment of compassion and care for those people, you know, if you didn't trust in the election, if you really thought that it was rigged, if you thought that it was stolen, if that were your perception, uh, of course that's going to be painful. Of course there's going to be anger. And so I have a lot of compassion for that perspective. And I wish I could bring an easeful reassurance in some way. And it's a challenging thing to do right now. So because I can't do that, all I can do is take a moment of silence and say, I feel you. I care about you. I want your well-being. I want your safety. I want safety for you. I want safety for your family. I hold you in my heart. Every being in our country, every being in our world. I want safety for you. I want peace for you. I want you to know that you matter. So I want to acknowledge that today's a day of celebration for some and not for everyone. And let's wrap care around all of it. So with that said, I'm going to hand it back to John.
Okay. Well, thank you, Katrina, for speaking for those voices we didn't get to hear tonight. And for all of us, how to hold empathy for the whole spectrum. And I'm thinking, so Katrina and I facilitated tonight. We're kind of the ones carrying forward the across the aisle week to week going forward. And but Paul is still here, and Corey's going to, I think, lead a final kind of closing prayer for us. I don't know if Paul wants to say anything in closing, and would love to have, if Corey, you're going to kind of bring us home. Would love that too. And then Scott, if you want to add anything as well.
Well, if I could say one last thing, thank you for everybody for showing up. I think when the people lead, the politicians follow. And that's the heartbeat of this. Martin Luther King didn't ask for permission to make a difference. He made the difference, and the politicians finally had to follow when the people said, we won't tolerate this anymore. So what I love about this is it's an example for the politicians to follow of how we can get along and deal with and dance with our differences in a way that brings us closer. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Paul, for that. Yeah, I want to lead for politicians to follow like that. And have politicians, you've spoken this in the past, Paul, have politicians join us on these across the aisles and have it grow and have all kinds of folks in positions of power and influence be part of this and using it and doing it. So thanks for that reminder, Paul. And Scott, Corey, are we ready to have Corey do it? Scott?
Yeah. Corey's there. So
All
take it away,
right.
Corey.
And if you want to say anything too, Corey, like if any comments about tonight or doing the across the aisle together and, up until this point and all that. So anything you want to share as well before you go into the closing.
Yeah. So I just appreciate everyone who was on the call tonight. And what I loved of what Paul shared was dancing with differences. And so what I invite you to right now is sort of how I brought us into the conversation. And that is, if you just take a moment with me, and you can do so with eyes closed. And I just invite you to take a deep breath with me. And an exhale. Even move your body back and forth, just kind of shaking it out a little bit. And another deep breath in. And breathing out. And inviting you to this moment of stillness and acknowledgement. That in this moment, not attempting to solve anything in this moment. I'm just inviting you to be in this moment. And so following this call, you may have some unmet needs, some things that you would have liked to have either expressed or heard. And maybe there are some things that you did hear and that were expressed. And so just to be with that in this moment, and to be with the spaciousness right here, that there is an intention with tonight's event, an intention for connection. And so as there is a change with the administration that we all have, many of us have witnessed today, we are also being invited to a shift of consciousness, of being invited to know that all our voices can be heard and can be held. And trusting that the skill of empathy, of listening, of understanding is available. And so just touching upon that interconnectivity, that we are all human beings on spaceship planet Earth. That there is a significance in us coming together tonight, on such a night and such a day as this. And so I'm grateful right here and now to lean into, you can call it the universe, you can call it the cosmos, you can call it God, you can call it whatever that your preference is, call it. That which indwells each and every one of us. It is for this and so much more that I am grateful and thankful. Blessing Scott, Katrina, John, Paul, Sister Stone, and everyone who's been a part of tonight's event. And I invite you to take another deep breath in with me. And breathing out. And for all the panelists and all the participants, I give thanks. And when you're ready, feel free to open your eyes if they aren't open. Stare at all the beautiful faces on the other side of this screen and to see our shared humanity. Thank you.
And so it is.
So it is.
I've gone to gallery view. I thought that might be a nice way to conclude. I'm actually going to take a picture of the gallery view. This is what we can use for our thumbnail when this gets posted. So everybody, 1, 2, 3, smile. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate everybody's sharing. And thank you very much, John and Katrina, for this incredible process. And do you want to share with us, you're going to continue starting again regular time next week. So love to ask one of you to share with us all about that. How do people continue to enjoy this journey with you?
Yeah, we do it every Wednesday, 5 to 6:30, and is what we've been doing and we'll continue to do through this month and into next month. And then it looks like we'll be shifting to a different night, maybe Thursday night, it's looking like. But for now, it'll be continue on Wednesdays, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific time. We just go for an hour and a half and pretty much just go straight into the process that we demonstrated tonight. Pretty quickly, and just do what we did and practice together. So hopefully folks will come join us and be part of it, and it can grow as we talked about. Yeah. Oh, and for information, you can get updated information on my events page on my website, johnkenyon.com/events. And you can always go there to get the Zoom link and register and updated information.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Oshala and Paul and Harvey and Corey and Claire. Everybody really appreciating each person's medicine. And blessings on our country, blessings on us all, maximum grace. And thank you. Good night, everybody.